Pest Fest.
Morning, guys. Good morning.
I watched that. Let me guess, you want me to sculpt something?
Oh, is this Jordu? I've heard about you, dude. I've always wanted to meet you. I hear you're pretty good at this stuff.
Ed Edmunds.
Okay, how long you spent on this?
Want some ruffles?
That was half an hour. Half an hour. It's fantastic.
It's not. It's awful.
Well, your awful is my beautiful.
I didn't bring
Jordu.
any tools. I can't. Gosh.
It's got tons of character.
Not at all unique.
There you are. Oh man, what a chore setting this up, dude. It's a labor of love, and I'm sure everybody's just loved it.
It's worth it though. And the reactions from the show so far have been amazing.
Yeah.
Tom Savini was here this morning, just loving it.
Yeah, I love it that Tom's a true fan.
I was telling him about certain pieces, and he actually worked on these Day of the Dead stunt masks. Those were on-set masks. I have all 3 Rotted Corpse, 1, 2, 3, the first 3. The reason I love it is seeing it in the old Fangoria ads, you know, things like, that's what I love about these old Distortions masks. It's just that connection to my childhood, my favorite magazine. I wanted these so bad back then.
Stuff as it went along.
This Snow Beast.
Oh, is that what that's called?
I think
Just
so.
kidding. Yeah.
This is another one that guys just go nuts over trying to obtain.
Now, Marsha used to hair these. We had a giant
I could have haired that.
table. It was probably a 10-foot table.
Yeah.
And it was on a Lazy Susan. You could spin it, and it had heads all around, and she'd get on there.
Slapping the hair on.
Oh, yeah.
I have another Distortions piece I would like to show you.
Oh,
Those are both from Tom Savini.
Well, his sculptures,
they're
and then we got the rights to manufacture them.
Beautiful examples though. Like, I don't think there's a better fluffy out there. Everyone says that this is the most pristine example of this. It's a really rare mask now. There's probably a handful known in the hobby.
Well, you know,
Detail on that is awesome.
What I love about your version is this coloring, you know, this strange silvery blue color that you chose. And this is probably one of my top favorite films of all time, Creepshow.
Yeah, that was
a very
such a
special
movie. Yeah.
So having these in my collection is incredible.
But of course, this one's the one that drives everybody crazy, right?
That's
that's
the Vern Langdon zombie. You know, in the hobby, it's the only known copy. You know, maybe there's one out there in the world that we don't know of, but that's the only original known.
Wow.
Original paint, original hair. There's another one that's completely restored. Paint.
Oh, so there's nothing left.
Paint,
but
hair,
that's
but
all original.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know, I actually called Vern Langdon in the 80s, I think. I wanted to do that mask, and he was going to let me do it.
Really?
But he wanted $5,000, and I'm like, back then.
That's a lot of money back then.
It was a lot of money, but it was also, collecting wasn't what it is now.
For you, when you first started collecting, like your very first mask.
Very first mask, you know, as a little kid, I was wearing all the little Ben Cooper plastic masks. And that. I really loved Halloween. Halloween was a different thing in the 80s, and it's changed now. And, it was so important to me. You wait all year, all month for that day, and you'd wear your costumes around school, and walk around the parade, and that love for Halloween gave me this love for masks. You know, it's like when you're a kid, when you put those Dracula teeth in, put the cape on, you're Dracula. Like in your mind, you put these monster masks on. I'm Frankenstein. Out of my way, you know, I'm a monster.
Well, I was super shy, but when I got in a monkey makeup or something, man, I could come alive. I don't know what that was. So do you remember your first mask? Do you know what it was?
Yeah.
The first, I had some ape masks and things, but my first, the one I really loved was a Be Something Studios late 70s evil unicorn with the horn that comes out.
That's obscure.
Yeah, still have. I've got others. You know, they made me a real custom one recently, a beautiful copy
so
for me.
cool.
The guys over there at Zagoni.
Those guys
There's
are
some Jordu Schell originals.
God.
You know, one really rare mask in this case here is an old House of Horrors one that I think most people probably never even saw this before, but that's an old Joe Reader.
That's good. Joe Reader did
1986 or 1988, I think he made this, but really neat. Yep. That's a fully restored original.
You know, I bought one of those in San Francisco. I was out visiting my sister, and it was in a shop, and I just had to have it. That was such a clever concept.
And it's so unique because of these little... Rob Tharp gave it the paint job, Kathy did the eyes, and then good old Dante Renta foam filled it. So, like Distortions, a very big part of our childhoods.
Yeah.
You know, and all those ads in the Monster magazines.
Well, for me, it was Don Post. I mean, that's what did it. That talk Don gave the other night was just, I was in the front row just...
Right, that was great.
My father was the creator of the latex mask back in 1938. And I kind of just inherited an interest because of his involvement in his business, Don Post Studios. And later on, I ran and owned Don Post Studios. So that's how I got involved in it.
What were some of your earliest memories that involved either masks or monsters or the making of, like your really early memories?
Well, one of the early memories was when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. I was in the factory where my dad was making all of the props for the original Body Snatchers movie. So I remember that, and I used to, my parents would both be working, so I'd go down to the factory with them and fall asleep on a work table at maybe 5 years old. So, you know, I've been around it literally all my life.
And was it something that it never scared you, or it was just always something just really normal, or when you were really little?
Well, the only thing that really scared me is after Body Snatchers, after they finished all that stuff, I wanted to see the movie. And I knew about all the pieces and everything, and I went to see the movie, and that scared me. And as a matter of fact, going along with the theme of the movie, we came home and I was quite stressed by it. And my parents said, "All right, it's time to go to sleep. Everything's okay." Well, I knew they had those pods. You know, no other kid could say that their parents had the pods. So it was very difficult to go to sleep that night.
People were looking at well, you've got a good signature.
That's professional.
Mine's terrible.
I wonder how many times I've done it.
Oh my gosh.
This is still kind of wet, so be careful.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I saw a movie when I was 11 years old, Man of a Thousand Faces. You know that movie? It's the story of Lon Chaney. I even have a son named Lon after Lon Chaney. But that's the first movie that showed me somebody creates the monsters. I believe they existed before that, you know. So I decided then and there I'm going to be one of the guys that creates the monsters. Your book is great, by the way.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm
I
enjoying
like
the hell out of it. Yeah.
It's kind of exposes my nerdiness, and stupidity.
We all know that we were all nerds
Yes.
at some point. Yeah.
Yes. You know, somebody told me recently, nerds are cool now. Did you know that?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. Is that what it was?
What do you want?
That is
Get you in the middle.
When I molded the this, I split this area off. And then I also split off the back of the
Oh, smart.
yeah, so I made a couple of different little molds, raw castings.
Wow. That's really good.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'm very happy with how they came out.
Yeah, those are gorgeous.
Thank you.
We were admiring your work last night. You weren't here, but holy cow.
I love it.
Yes.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
Good.
Yeah. That's a good name too.
Thank you. I actually.
Yeah, that's a very memorable name.
So I used to be afraid of all of this stuff. I couldn't watch a horror movie.
Oh, is that right?
That's absolutely right. And then I was hired to sculpt a life-size decaying horse for a haunted attraction. And I'm like, and I've always loved anatomy. And I was like, I'm in, right? And then I started watching horror movies, and I maybe had some nightmares I had to work through for a while. And now I literally can't get enough. So I'm the chicken that casts the monster shadow.
That is so cool. That's a great story. Well, you know, sometimes stuff gets locked in your head when you're a child, and you can't get it out. It's very hard to purge, and it's irrational. You know, like a lot of adults have fear of clowns, but they got scared as a child, and it's just in there somewhere in their subconscious. So that's cool. You work through it and love them. Yeah, that is great.
Yeah. So like I can pattern all kinds of stuff. So I made him some.
I can't complain.
It's okay. No,
I made like these vampires. I made so many of them.
So little column A, little column B.
Because I mean, I had the display set up, but I mean, I guess people just really dig life casting stuff now.
This is very clever. You know, the little cutesy bow, and then it's like, oh no, something's very wrong with her.
Well, I just what I did.
Oh, nice.
I used the hands because that's from a crappy pour of the body that I had, and I just made a bust out of it.
Wow.
But this one's fun.
Really good paint. Man,
Thanks.
You got it.
Thanks, man.
You got your style. Looks great. Amazing.
Everything's cool.
I love this so much. Don't you?
We'll put it in the living room.
I love it.
I already got good stuff. It was good seeing you.
Always good seeing you.
Thanks, Marsha. I appreciate it.
Hey guys. Oh man, you're dedicated.
That's why there's only one. I'm not mass producing.
Oh my gosh, yes. Really good. Sculpting and painting. Nice.
I actually watched all the Distortions Unlimited demo videos from like Transworld, and that was like, it was really cool because I wanted to know how they made it. And I saw like all the Dr. Lady videos, I saw like Gremlins and Rick Baker's work on like what was it, Star Wars, and the second one of Gremlins. It blew my mind. So for this, you know, it inspired me, and at 10 I got a foam head and some latex and toilet paper, and I made like my first ever mask on there. And yeah, and it turned into this 4 years later, and yeah, Monster Resurrection. My dad does the sculpts with me, and my dude.
Sorry, I'm just working.
Yeah, my dude, Funhouse Jose Claudio, he helped sculpt with us as well. One of the immortal mask sculptors, Austin Matthews, has done some stuff for us as well. And yeah, and one of our dudes, Straight to Video Mask Maker, did this one too. This is like a debut and everything.
So we did that, and then
this black and white effect is really good. That's a
and
hard
I just did a
one.
blue variant.
Right.
But I like the black and white.
Yes.
These all glow in the dark.
Nice.
Shakarama Mummy, Shakaratu, and Shakenstein Monster. This one's wearable. And this is the, basically, Tom loves this one. Savini was saying, the famous Monsters cover. But of course, when you turn it to the side, you never could see the side views. I had to kind of figure out what it would look like.
Yes.
And this is an older sculpture. And this is one of the most recent things.
Nice.
And I never did a bust before. She's got 22. Now the snakes, there's bendable wire embedded in each one, so you can pose all 22. It weighs 10 pounds.
It was circa 1989 or something like 88, and it was those back page ads in Fangoria, I think Gore Zone, but it was just, you flip them over, you've seen all these wonderful masks that were, I mean, they might as well have been on the moon, because no shops around me had them, but they're phenomenal. I love them. Baby Stinky, I wanted one of those Baby Stinky puppets in the worst way and everything, but just, they're iconic, for me, and that was a big inspiration.
First interaction with Distortions was watching the TV show with Making Monsters, and in the book, it's a catalog of so much more of the work that we weren't familiar with. So seeing some of the history of those things, the sculpts, and how they were made, and the colors that they were using at the time, is really, really neat. Some of that stuff is so rare. And again, seeing Making Monsters was great because it showed that there's work to be done. There is a market for these people doing these physical mediums, and that led me into the industry in Los Angeles doing that kind of thing, special effects. It's all related, and you can get so much character in these latex masks, and it's so much fun in that the Halloween sense of things, but then also just folks who collect them to have on display year-round. It's something that needs to be passed on, because if you don't keep telling other folks, it might get lost, and that's history that's worth repeating. And you have to know where you come from to really respect the craft in that sense, and who did it, and really give tribute to those folks who paved the way for the other artists who came later on. So many of us wouldn't be doing these kinds of things if not for the inspiration that we got from folks like Distortions, from Don Post, that were doing these kinds of things at a time when not a lot of other people were doing them.
This one and all of these are like from the 70s and 80s designs. Sculpted by Bill Oystrom for Zagoni.
So these are all from the...
Yeah, all these designs, span like early 70s to the 80s. I mean, this guy might be as early as like 1975 or 73. I don't remember which.
I want to say we're right around 14 years now. And yeah, of course, I was a huge collector of all things horror and masks, and a huge fan of Distortions and Don Post Studios, and that I was working in corporate America and I just couldn't stand the job. So I called up Justin, who was my favorite independent artist, and asked if he wanted to start a mask company in the vein of old Don Post Studios, Topstones, Distortions, and that's kind of how it began. And then we had a roadmap for how we wanted to evolve from masks, costumes, props, and then eventually get into figures, action figures, other collectibles, and then I'm a huge tabletop gamer, so that was the next evolution. So we do tabletop games and puzzles and kind of just growing out the category. It didn't hurt, too, that my dad, he was into motion picture distribution, and he was part of media, home entertainment, and he was part of Bryanston, and he was the original distributor for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And Halloween, I remember having that on Betamax. I remember seeing the movie in Irwin Yablon's screening room before it had the soundtrack. Yeah, so it just kind of grew up with it. Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
These magazines, and there's like Distortions, and there's like Death Studios, and there's like, all these people making cool stuff, right? And you're like, oh my God, I want to do this. There's a photo of someone in a basement with a bunch of masks behind them. You're like, I want to do that,
In fact, that was almost exactly one of the photos that made me go crazy. That magazine, Amazing Cinema?
Of course, yeah. I know that.
Their second issue had an article on independent mask makers, and that was the first time I ever saw the face of the guy who was doing the stuff I was crazy about.
Yeah.
I thought he looked like a trucker.
Yeah.
I look like a what?
A trucker.
A trucker. I was very stylish.
I remember that issue. That had Jeff Death in it too, right? It was a cool picture of him.
Kime, Joe Reeder, Dave Ayers, and Ed.
Yeah, exactly.
You were mystified by how to do a two-piece mold. You look at this.
Well, I was 15 or something, you know. and like everything. There was no way to get information back then. You know, there was literally nothing. And I had like that stage makeup book by Richard Corson.
That was it for me too. I had Richard Corson. I had the Dick Smith. What was it? How to make a monster?
There was a making a monster.
This guy,
making a monster. Oh, the Dick Smith Monster Maker Handbook. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all I had, and we would call. I'd try to talk to mask companies and stuff, and it was a black box. They would not reveal their secrets.
So I got about every one of our kids. We got 3 of them, and they're all about the same size. And it was her time, and I'm like, "You want to go?" And she's like, "I can't miss it." She's like,
So that was so Reed sculpted the pumpkins. He did this incredible vampire display up here, the witch and the conquistador mummy.
Who did the paint job?
Me, Reed.
And you came up with the idea for the cotton and stuff. Yeah, I used that years and years ago. It's brilliant. I like the colors you chose. I always go with this kind of greenish color. Sure. I think this looks more real.
Oh, thanks.
You like the dragons?
Sold 4 of the dragons. We brought 8, so we're halfway there.
Get on it.
Yeah. We sold a Gene Stealer earlier today.
Gene Stealer?
Yeah.
So there's people running around without pants?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Oh my gosh.
I know, you gotta watch out.
Somebody's gonna get arrested. It's a problem.
Yeah, that's too painful. It wasn't a mistake. Yeah,
are you sure?
I'm serious.
Oh my God, he's
Tell him
gonna freak out.
Yeah.
He's seriously.
Being a leprechaun is so much fun. Here comes Ed.
A leprechaun, I can't believe
it. Saucerman is the mask.
The Invasion of the Saucerman.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful movie.
And is this called Invasion of the Saucerman or just Saucerman?
I don't know, maybe Saucy for sure.
Saucerman.
But what was so cool about it was they used little people to wear this thing. So as big as this thing is, it was gigantic, and they had their little spacesuits, and it was just a classic movie monster. Well, long ago, we made this thing. Paul Blaisdell sculpted it in the 50s, I believe, and it's a beautiful sculpture. I've always thought this was a great movie monster, and we were able to, with the help of Al Taylor, who had written a book and had interviewed his widow, I guess, she had it in the attic, the molds, and one of the pieces, so he sent somebody over, they picked it up, the bridge was out, they had to hold the molds, which these are big molds, over their heads, go through the stream or something, and shipped them to Colorado. We made this in the 80s, and then probably 83. And then, we made our fair share, and then we were done. We didn't sell a whole lot because it had to go through the retail system. The retailer's like, woo, that's expensive. So then, this was maybe a few years ago, I was looking in a magazine, there was a picture of Tom Savini with a wall of masks and things, and this was unpainted, like a foam master. And so I called him up and said, Tom, where'd you get that? He said, I don't know, I think you gave it to me or something. I said, okay. And so I said, you want to sell it? And he said, sure. And so, because he had a painted one from the 80s. And so I said, well, how much you want for it? He said, well, why don't we trade? So I sent him some pictures of stuff we could trade for. So he calls Jordu. Jordu offered him something better, and he sold it to Jordu instead. And I was like, oh, but Jordu said sometime we'd mold it. Well, that was many years ago. Finally got around to buying it from Jordu, and we thought, well, we'll cast it and bring it to MassFest, and then offer them this November. So it's made the rounds, and it's one of the greatest movie monsters of all. Paul Blaisdell was really talented.
Yeah.
We already sold it to Gary and Marsha.
from September to October, it'll be at Delert Gallery in Winston-Salem. I'll have it on display there with some other alien stuff that you did and Jordu did.
Oh, nice.
Some of the Resurrection mask and Jordu's 1955 mask.
Nice.
But that's the jewel.
That's the jewel.
That's the jewel.
You know, I love this creature. It's one of my favorite movie monsters.
Me too. The first time I saw a mask, I was about 4, and that was 1955 or 6 because I wasn't in the first grade, and it must have been made out of plastic or whatever. In the 50s, I don't think latex masks were around, but I was amazed because the kid that had it on didn't look human anymore, and I thought if the kid took the mask off, if it would be a human or something different. So that's when I first got my love for this, and monsters went back to shock theater in the 50s. My uncle took me to his house and said, "You can stay up till midnight and we'll watch Dracula." And I was about 5, I think.
And it didn't scare you too bad? You loved it? You were fascinated?
I was more fascinated until I went to bed, and then everything I heard was Bela Lugosi and he was going to kill me.
There we go.
Oh, no. No. Tell me where I'm heading. Okay. You lead the way.
Ed and Marsha, where we know